This is the video for slides 28 through 44 for the integumentary system. We're going to be talking about the accessory structures. They are hair follicles, exocrine glands, and nails. Nails will be discussed in a different video. So hair follicles are the components that produce hairs, that form the hairs. The exocrine glands are glands. Exo means to exit. So those are glands that secrete things onto the surface of your skin. And so there's three main types. There's sebaceous glands, there are apocrine glands, and there are merocrine glands. We'll talk about those in this video. So your hair is all of your body. The exceptions of where hair exists are anywhere you have thick skin, so that's the palms of your hands, the soles of your feet. Also, if you notice the sides of your fingers and your toes, your lips don't have any hair, and your external genitalia, the actual components, do not have hair as well. There's hair around them, but not actually on the external genitalia. So there's two main types of hairs on your body. The one is that's like in your hair, on your head that you brush. Those are called terminal hairs, and they're larger and they're coarse and they're thick, and they're usually darker than the rest of your body hairs. And so those include the hair on your head, genital hair, your eyebrows, your eyelashes, and for men it includes the hair on your chest and your stomach, back, and legs. So men have much more terminal hair on their body than women do. The rest of the hair on your body, most of it's called, like, people call it peach fuzz, or you don't even notice that you have it. Those are called vellus hairs. They're small, they're short, they're there for a lot of touch sensation, and just kind of everywhere on your body surface, your arm hair, um, on your hands, on your face. Well, for males, their facial hair is a terminal hair, but for females, your facial hair is vellus. So it's the small, short, usually not as noticeable. So the hair follicle is the component that actually forms each hair. So one hair follicle will form one single hair. So however many hairs you have on your body, you have that many hair follicles as well. They are made out of epithelial and connective tissues, which we'll see in a moment on the picture. They have three layered components to them, really four, including this connective tissue sheath here, which is the most exterior part that goes down into the dermis. And then the base of the hair follicle has a hair bulb and hair papilla. So the hair bulb, the epithelial cap. So if you ever pull out a piece of hair from your head, kind of like slowly and gently, it hurts because your hair papilla is connected to your nerves, and so that hurts when you pull that out. But if you can pull it out slowly, you see at the end of it the kind of like a white cap at the base of the hair where it came out of your head, and this is the epithelial cap and the hair bulb that your hair is growing out of. So here's a picture. So remember, this purple up here is your epidermis, and this pink down here is your dermis. So the hair follicle begins in the epidermis and it extends down into the dermis. So here is the blood vessel connected to it to provide nutrients and oxygen to grow the cells. And this is the nerve endings here that would hurt when you pull your hair. So this is the piece of hair here. And then this blue part is your hair follicle, the connective tissue sheath of the hair follicle. So this is a cross section of this. So this blue piece right here cuts through it. And so here's your cross section of your hair follicle. These three things, this blue, this purple, and this like peach color. And then this ring here, this and this are the actual pieces of it. Is actually a cross section of the hair, a piece of hair. So here's your connective tissue sheath. This very thin layer in here is called the glassy membrane. Then right here is your external root sheath, and then this peach part here is the internal root sheath. So 1, 2, 3, 4 components of the hair follicle. And then for the actual structure of the hair, you have the cuticle. So when you are looking at your hair, you're looking at the cuticle. You can see the cuticle of your hair. You cannot see the cortex or the medulla. Those are inside the hair and you do not see them. They're all made of keratin. The cortex is more of a hard keratin, and this is more of a soft keratin, and then cuticle is just keratin as well, which is a protein that makes your hair. So for your layers of your hair, we just talked about the cuticle, the outermost layer, cortex, middle layer, and then the very middle layer is the medulla, and that has the soft, flexible keratin in it. Hair shaft, so what you're seeing and what you brush with a hairbrush is the hair shaft. So you are seeing the cuticle of the hair shaft. The hair root is inside your head. You cannot see that. This is where it anchors itself into your head and it grows. So this is kind of everything put together. So this is the arrector pili muscle. Remember this from the first section. It pulls, it's an involuntary muscle. It pulls on this hair follicle to make it stand up for goosebumps. This is the sebaceous gland right here. It's kind of a bulbous, usually a triple bulb gland here. And when the arrector pili muscle contracts, it also pushes out the oily secretion called sebum from the sebaceous gland. So it has kind of a two functions: goosebumps to make your hair stand up straight to keep you warmer, and then also to secrete sebum from the sebaceous gland. And so then here's your hair shaft. This is what you actually see. And then the sebaceous gland, the sebum, it is secreted, and it's to lubricate this hair so that you don't get an ingrown hair. And then it's also to provide some antimicrobial properties so you don't get infections in your hair follicle. So this is just a longitudinal cross section of the hair follicle and then the hair. So here's your follicle right here, the blue part, and then the purple and this light peach part, and then this is your actual hair in the medulla and the cortex and the cuticle that you can't really see because it's very thin. And then down here is the papilla. So if you pulled out your hair, this would detach from down here, and the nerve ending is connected down here with the blood vessels, and it would hurt. So you have your, what we just said, the root hair plexus with the nerves, and then the arrector pili muscle to cause goosebumps and also to secrete sebum from your sebaceous glands. So in terms of growing, the hair on your head is going to grow during what we call the active phase, and can grow anywhere from like 2 to 5 years at around 1/3 of a millimeter per day. So it can grow up to a meter if you don't ever cut it. And then once the active phase ends, for about 2 to 4 weeks, it comes into this resting phase where your hair becomes detached from the bulb, but it's still in the follicle. So it's no longer like anchored to it. So if it got pulled out, it wouldn't hurt. It's not attached to the hair plexus anymore, but it's still in the hair follicle. So a lot of times these hairs come out when you're brushing them or washing them or putting on clothes. Anytime a friction on your head could actually pull it out. You could lose up to 100 hairs per day just during this resting phase. And when it loses the attachment and it's waiting to get pulled out, it's what we call a club hair. And so as soon as that club hair is pulled or extracted from your follicle, then the new growth is going to be reactivated, and your cells at the bottom of the follicle will start the mitosis process again and will start growing a new hair. So here's your active phase, and then it's resting. And so now this is the club hair waiting to get pulled. See how it's not really attached anymore, but it is still in that hair follicle. And so it can get pulled out, but it won't hurt at that point anymore. So your hair color, the difference in structure and variation in pigments is produced in your melanocytes. Those are your melanocytes come into play again, not only with your skin coloring, but also your hair coloring as well. There's different types of melanin for different hair colors, for blonde and brown and red and all different types. And then as you age, the pigment production can stop or starts to decrease, and people start seeing gray hair or white hair. And so the white hair doesn't have any pigment in it, and sometimes it can get air bubbles in the medulla, and that can also cause it to turn white as well. So moving into the sebaceous glands, this is an oily secretion. It secretes this mixture of stuff called sebum. And it is oily in nature. So if your hair looks oily, it's because the sebum has been being secreted the way it's supposed to, and it just kind of collectively because so much of it is on your hair and it hasn't been washed away with soap, it looks greasy, right? But really, it's there to protect your hair follicle from getting infected with bacteria. So the sebum is made out of triglycerides, cholesterols, proteins, and electrolytes. And it's there to lubricate it and to prevent infection in your hair follicle and on your hair, on your scalp. So, like we said earlier, it's branched, usually 3 branches. It's noticeable and it's always connected to a hair follicle, and it releases the sebum when the arrector pili muscle is contracted. So here's your sebaceous gland here attached to this hair follicle. See the bulbs here, 1, 2, 3, usually a triple bulb. And then this over here is just a sebaceous follicle. So this is a sebaceous gland, which is attached to a hair follicle, and this is a sebaceous follicle that is not attached to a hair. So you have sebaceous follicles on your face, your back, your chest, nipples, and external genitalia, but it's not necessarily connected to a hair or a hair follicle. But it does secrete that sebum as well. And again, it's that branching sort of anatomical structure there. So in terms of sweat glands, you have 2 main types of sweat glands. You have apocrine sweat glands and you have merocrine, or sometimes called eccrine sweat glands. And the apocrine ones all the sweat glands produce more of a watery secretion. So the sebaceous gland is more oily and the sweat glands are more watery. But the apocrine ones are located in your armpit, groin, and nipples. And the secretion that they have is more viscous or thick. And it also might have a certain odor to it. And scientists think that possibly, a long time ago was used in some sort of olfactory communication, meaning communication through smells and being able to determine, who was there and what they smell like and things like that. Before we had, oral communication, how some animals communicate through their sense. So these are strongly influenced by hormones. Usually, you don't start getting armpit sweat until you start going through puberty, and then it's going to smell more, and that's why people use deodorant. So these 3 areas are highly connected to puberty and hormones. So these apocrine are very influenced by your hormones, and they're also in the mammary glands as well. The merocrine or eccrine sweat glands are almost all the other areas of your body, and they are mostly watery, water and salt. So the electrolytes is the salt part, so it might taste salty. And it's controlled by your nervous system because it's meant for thermoregulation. So it's one way that your body is able to maintain homeostasis. If your body gets too hot, it releases sweat in order for the body to cool down. And it also does have some antibacterial action just to keep your skin clean. So it's kind of a function is to clean it. Clean the surface of your skin and keep you cool, and some antibacterial action as well. And that's the end of the segment.